Somewhere in the endless expanse of space, millions of suns are breathing. They shimmer like hearts made of fire scattered across eternity, each star a tiny note painting light upon the deep dark canvas of the night. The universe hums softly, a lullaby woven from light and time. But even the stars grow weary. Their flames fade, their songs come to a close. The brilliance that once shaped worlds now drifts slowly through the stillness of eternity. The light dims, leaving behind a strange kind of peace, one that is both sorrowful and beautiful. Out there, far away among the galaxies, only shadows remain, faint echoes of the light that once dared to exist. A graveyard of sleeping suns, drifting gently in the silence of time, no longer radiant, yet no longer in pain. Only perfect stillness, like the deep sleep of the cosmos itself. Can beauty still exist when the light has gone out? Or does the darkness still remember what it once loved? These questions linger in space like wisps, smoke that have yet to fade away. Close your eyes and drift with me through the quiet of the universe, where the last remaining stars are still whispering, telling the story of how everything ended and how once more it all began again. Before light existed, the universe had not yet been born. There was no time, no space, no sound echoing through that endless void. All was a formless stillness, shapeless, colorless, a place where nothing yet had a name. Even darkness did not exist, for to have darkness, one must first have a glimmer of light to contrast it. The only thing present then was silence, a silence so deep that even loneliness had not yet come into being. If one could listen to that moment, perhaps all they would hear was a faint breath. Not hurried, not clear, just a fragile exhalation, like the soul of nothingness gently stirring within its own long sleep. There was no beginning, no end, only waiting. A waiting that did not know what it awaited, but persisted nonetheless, like a seed buried in the earth or a drop of dew waiting for the touch of morning light. Everything lay still, suspended in a void that seemed eternal. There was no direction to move, no destination to reach. Yet somewhere within that numbing calm, a tiny vibration began, like the heartbeat of something not yet born. A quiver so subtle, yet strong enough to crack the veil of silence that had wrapped around nothingness for eons. Nothingness did not resist. It merely smiled softly, knowingly, for it understood that the moment had come. Within that emptiness, a dream was forming, not a dream shaped like a person or carrying any voice, but a dream belonging to the universe itself. This dream had no name, but it grew warmer, as though a candle had been lit by the first breath of wind. If we close our eyes and imagine, we can see it a misty realm, contracting, then expanding, like a living being, learning how to breathe. There is no light yet, but something is waiting to be born. Perhaps this was the purest moment the universe ever knew, when nothing had yet been defined, and both light and darkness still rested together within one essence piece. The phrase only, the first breath of nothingness, is not merely an image. It is the opening note of existence's great symphony. Nothingness was never dead. It was resting, quietly gathering every possibility, every seed of the future, holding them close, like a mother cradling a child not yet formed. It was the calmest of moments, yet the most powerful, for even within stillness, life was being conceived. It seemed as though nothing existed yet, Within that nothing there was everything. Every unformed particle of energy, every vibration not yet given a name, waited together, waiting for a single instant, the moment when nothingness would stop dreaming and begin to awaken. Then what had never been before would appear, and the universe would open its eyes for the first time. That dream was called light. It did not burst forth immediately, but stirred gently, like a small flame cupped in the palm of a hand. The light did not yet shine, but it was present. Deep within the heart of nothingness, a single point began to glow, faint, uncertain, yet real. And as that point expanded, stillness would no longer rule. From that first breath, the rhythm of life began to spread. The storyteller pauses here, as if to breathe with the universe. In this quiet, we too can feel our own breath, blending with the breath of nothingness, merging with that very first pulse. For within each of us lies a before light, a small ancient fragment of the beginning, still resting within our hearts. And then, just when we think the silence will last forever, something unexpected happens. Not an explosion, but a deep vibration spreading like waves. Space, which had never existed, begins to expand. Time, which had never flowed, begins to move. From the heart of nothingness, light awakens. The universe opens its eyes. At that moment, the dream of nothingness awoke. Light was no longer a thought, it became the first heartbeat of the universe. It expanded, spreading warmth, sound, and form. Tiny particles began to dance, and time began to breathe. And thus, from the dream of darkness, the universe was born, gentle, yet eternal. Perhaps every beginning comes from a moment so small that no one realizes it is the start of everything. Amid the endless stillness, where nothingness still slept within its own dream, a faint flicker appeared, so soft, so fragile, like the first heartbeat of a soul discovering life. There was no deafening explosion, no blinding light, only a small warmth spreading through the deep darkness, like a warm hand touching cold water for the very first time. That spark was not alone. It trembled, divided, multiplied into 2, into 10, into billions. They chased and merged, weaving the first tapestry of existence. The universe awoke, not in chaos, but in grace. It unfolded slowly, like a flower blooming layer by layer, shifting from nothingness into being. Space was woven from that very light, and time began to flow like a small stream running through the still heart of eternity. Each ray of light was a breath, each vibration a whisper. They did not fight or collide violently, but danced together in invisible waves. The first particles were born smaller than thought, lighter than breath. They mingled, spun, and in the arms of energy, matter began to form. It was the first loom of the cosmos, threads of light and shadow interweaving, creating the infinite fabric upon which stars would one day shine. If you close your eyes, you can almost imagine that moment, a sea of light unfolding, not in any one direction, but spreading evenly, like a heart learning to beat for the first time. There were no borders, no limits. Every direction was the beginning, and in that great expansion, the universe found its rhythm. No one witnessed that moment, but if anyone could hear it, perhaps they would hear a very soft sound, not an explosion, but the resonance of birth, a long, gentle hum, like a lullaby. For the Big Bang was not merely an explosion, it was an awakening. Nothingness had dreamed long enough, and now it opened its eyes to see itself for the first time. Light rose, spreading outward, embracing the void and filling it. Heat and energy intertwined, painting the universe's first color, not blue, not red, but a warm white, like the breath of someone asleep. Time began to count the first seconds. Space swelled like soft fabric, and everything began to move, even though no one had told it where to go. The universe had no shape, yet no stars, no planets, but it had rhythm, the rhythm of life beginning to stir. The tiny particles began to find one another. They collided, melted, and fused. In each collision, energy flashed, and from it, brilliance spread like sunlight passing through water. The universe was no longer still. It was learning how to move, how to sing, how to breathe. There was something tender in the way the universe was born, not fierce, not hurried, but like a warm breeze touching a frozen field. The light continued to unfold, flowing endlessly. It did not know where it was going, only that it must spread, must reach every corner, so that all things could be seen, could be named. And when light had filled everything, darkness remained, not to fight against it, but to give it a home. Between them there was no war, only balance, one radiant, one calm. Together they allowed each other to exist. That was the moment the universe became a symphony, sound, light, and shadow, weaving together the first song of life. If you listen closely, you can still feel that breath, even now, in the beating of your own heart, because everything that ever existed began from this moment, the moment light found its path through the heart of nothingness. The universe continued to expand, soft as smoke, drifting through wind. Light gradually separated into streams and regions. Heat cooled energy dispersed. In that vastness, the first clouds of dust formed small, yet carrying within them the seeds of countless worlds to come. Those dust clouds did not know that one day they would become stars, planets, and places where beings would look up and tell the story of their own origins. They only knew that they were spinning in the arms of light, searching for a form, a breath of their own. After its great expansion, light began to seek a resting place. It no longer wished merely to spread, but to create, to anchor itself within the endless void. And so, from the immense sea of radiance, clouds of gas and dust slowly gathered. Everything was preparing for a new moment, the moment when light would take shape, when the formless clouds would crystallize into the first stars. The universe no longer expanded in silence. Light had filled the darkness, and within that glow, tiny particles began to find one another. They spun, they collided, and amid the chaos, something began to coalesce. The universe's breath grew heavier, deeper. A star was about to be born, and from that moment on, light would not only travel, but shine from its own heart. After light had spread across the universe, space was still restless. The streams of light softened, the heat subsided, and amidst the cooling sea of energy, clouds of dust began to appear. They were thin, floating light as morning mist. Each tiny grain drifted in silence, unaware of where it came from or where it was going. Yet somehow something in the universe was whispering to them that it was time to find one another. The dust began to move slowly, at first, then faster. They collided, broke apart, and then sought each other again. There was no sound, only faint ripples, spreading through space like distant heartbeats. Gradually, small clusters formed, embracing one another, as warmth began to rise. Every touch was a call, every collision an embrace between souls, that did not yet know they existed. As those grains gathered, something miraculous happened. They melted, merged, and became larger, heavier masses. The weight pulled them closer still, as though within each grain was an unnamed longing for the rest of the universe. Little by little, heat began to appear, not a violent blaze, but the first warmth, a small warmth, yet enough to make the darkness retreat a few steps. As time passed, the clouds of dust contracted, swirling tighter, thicker, brighter. Light had not yet emerged, but one could feel its nearness. Deep within the heart of that spiraling mass, the heat grew until everything trembled. The warmth pulsed like a soul preparing to cry for the first time. And then at the very limit, a flame ignited. Not vast, not loud, just a small light kindled in the dark. The first star was born. It was fragile. It trembled, weak and uncertain, like a newborn learning to breathe. Its light was not blinding, only enough to illuminate a small space around itself. Yet in the vastness of the dark, even a single spark was enough for a miracle. The universe saw itself reflected in that light, and for the first time, darkness knew what it meant to be beautiful. The star slowly learned how to steady its breath. The heat within it became rhythmic, the light more constant. From a trembling spark, it turned into a small lamp that burned without end. And the surrounding clouds noticed. They began to gather, drawn toward that glow, like flocks of birds flying toward a flame in the night. Other stars followed, small, clumsy, but full of devotion. The sky still had no form, but it had rhythm now, a faint rhythm, like the first heartbeat of the cosmos. The light from these young stars shone upon the remaining dust, making it shimmer like silver threads stretched across the heavens. Each thread reflected the light, as if the dust itself wanted to join in the new song of the universe. That first star, though small, became the pathfinder. It burned not for anyone, not for anything, but simply because that was its nature, to shine with its own breath. In its light, the universe no longer felt cold. In its warmth, darkness no longer felt lonely. And so, millions, billions of stars came to life, each carrying within them the memory of nothingness, of light, and of reunion. If one could hear the sound of that moment, it would be the gentlest melody in the history of the cosmos, the song of dust turning into stars. Not thunderous, like storms, not fierce like fire, but the soft breathing of little souls finding each other. The universe listened, and in that moment, silence was no longer emptiness. It became peace. The young star kept burning, and from its warmth, the surrounding dust began to crystallize, swirling into small disks of matter. Within those spirals, tiny fragments were finding one another again, embracing just as the first grains of dust once did. It was as if the universe was repeating itself, but in a more delicate, more graceful way. For worlds are not born only once. Every star is a beginning, every cloud of dust, a promise that life will continue. In the warmth of a newborn star, there is a message from a distant past that everything which once vanished can bloom again. As the light of the first star stabilized, the surrounding darkness softened. It was no longer overwhelming, no longer cold. The light spread gently like a hand caressing a sleeping face. The once frozen dust was warmed, beginning to reflect that glow, turning into thin ribbons of light that drifted around the young star. The universe was no longer alone. It now had tiny sparks that could breathe, could sing, could love. Now that the star had opened its eyes, it began to learn how to live. Every ray of light was a heartbeat, every stream of heat a breath. It was no longer merely the product of dust and energy, but a living being in its own right. Within the vastness of the cosmos, the first breath of a star echoed soft, warm, and full of life. It was not just the breath of fire, but the breath of the universe itself, entrusted to the heart of light. When the first flame was kindled in the heart of the universe, space itself seemed to change. Light began to spread, radiating in soft waves, like breath. The young star, born from dust and shadow, trembled gently. It shivered like a living being learning how to exist. Every beam of light that came from it was not just energy, it was a heartbeat, the first pulse of the infant universe. The star learned how to breathe. It inhaled with swirling streams of gas and exhaled in warm light, and so each cycle unfolded slow, steady, like someone sleeping deeply within a dream. In that moment, the universe was no longer merely a chaos of energy and dust. It had become a place capable of living, of feeling. The star, the universe's first child, was breathing, and the cosmos listened. Each ray of light leaving it was a song flying far into the cold expanse. Wherever those rays touched, darkness softened, curled in on itself, and slowly withdrew. No longer the conqueror, darkness now became a companion, giving light a place to belong. In that harmony, the star continued to shine, continued to inhale and exhale, like a heart floating in an endless ocean. And soon around it, other stars began to learn as well. They gazed at one another through the mist of dust, illuminating one another like children playing in a courtyard. Some stars were small, their light barely enough to embrace themselves. Others were vast, their radiance reaching millions of miles away. But whether large or small, each star found its own way to breathe, to exist. They did not compete, nor try to outshine one another. They simply coexisted, creating together the shared rhythm of the universe. At this moment, the cosmos resembled a symphony where every star was a musical note. Some were high, some low, but together they formed the first harmony of existence. Within this music, the young star grew steadier. Its light no longer trembled. It had learned to hold its rhythm, to know when to rest and when to blaze. Every swirl of gas around it, every pulse of light, carried a fragment of the star's own story, the story of being born from dust, of feeling the first warmth, of learning how to survive in a vast, quiet world. But instead of fearing that vastness, it chose to sing with light. Its light reached the drifting dust around it, making each speck shimmer like floating diamonds. Some grains were pulled into its orbit, circling and dancing like children running around a campfire at night. Each spin, each glimmer was a gentle lullaby to the universe, the vast mother watching from above. The star had now become a lantern in the deep night. It no longer warmed only itself, but the space around it. Within its core, tiny reactions unfolded endlessly, like the steady breathing of a strong heart. It did not know it was creating energy, did not know it was shaping the future of billions of worlds. It only knew that to burn brightly was instinct, the most natural thing it could do. And so, time passed. New stars continued to be born, each with its own light, its own breath. Together, they illuminated the universe, not to outshine one another, but to make the darkness less lonely. And in that grand composition, every pulse, every breath came together as the first echo of life, Not human life, but the life of the cosmos itself. Some stars dimmed and faded, others burned brighter than before. Yet all understood that in this endless cycle, no one truly disappeared, for light, even when extinguished, left its mark in space, traces of brilliance, drifting on, telling the story of that star for millions of years to come. From afar, the sky appeared as a soft blanket, speckled with points of light, each one a star breathing, dreaming. But to each star itself, the world was simply a sequence of heartbeats, hot, radiant, and tender. In that rhythm, it could feel the pulse of its kin, the closeness of other luminous souls drifting together through the night. One day, its warmth would reach the more distant dust, stirring it, gathering it, beginning a new cycle. The star did not know, but its light would plant the seeds of the future, for planets not yet born, for oceans still asleep within the dust. The star kept breathing softly, evenly. The space around it slowly began to change. The ring of dust encircling it grew denser, thicker, brighter. Within that layer, matter started to gather. Tiny grains touched and fused. Gradually, those fragments became clumps, then shapes. Within the embrace of the star's light, the dust was transforming. It no longer wandered aimlessly, but began to find its own order. Piece by piece, fragment by fragment, it revolved around the source of light, like dreams crystallizing into form. And within those dreams, another miracle was about to happen. The first planets would be born, carrying the warmth of their parent star and beginning to learn how to dream. Around the breathing star, rings of glowing dust turned slowly. At first, they were nothing more than tiny grains, floating like mist in sunlight. But over time, they began to seek one another, like little souls calling to each other within a dream. Every touch, every spiral was a silent promise. The dust gathered into fragments, then into chunks, then into masses. The once empty space gradually thickened with stone gas and ice, all circling the mother light, the star that had given them birth. At first it was chaos, random collisions, the muted sound of matter striking matter in the endless void. But then something strange happened. Instead of breaking apart, they began to cling. Piece by piece, fragments joined together, growing larger. Some became rock, some turned to gas, and some kept water, locked deep inside their frozen cores. All of them were searching for balance, as if the universe itself were quietly shaping the first outlines of worlds. Under the soft glow of the star, these bodies of matter began to settle into orbits. The dusty rings slowly turned into circles, each mass drifting along its own path. The universe, which until then had known no shape, now began to curve. There was something tender in this arrangement, unhurried, unplanned, simply the natural rhythm of something being born. One day, within that endless rotation, a rock grew larger than the rest. It was heavy, dense, and began to hold heat. The light of its parent star touched its surface, melting thin layers of ice, warming it gently. For the first time in its existence, there was something that resembled warmth. That rock did not know what it was, nor that it would one day become a planet. It only knew that it loved the feeling of being warmed by the light. Perhaps that was the planet's very first dream, a dream of warmth, of being, of simply existing. Other planets were born soon after. Some stayed close to their star, so hot that their surfaces melted into rivers of fire. Some drifted farther away, so cold that everything froze, leaving only silence and wind. But between those extremes, there were a few that found the perfect distance, not too hot, not too cold, where light could touch without burning, and darkness could fall without killing. In those places, life was waiting. The planet slowly learned how to keep the warmth of the light, not just to reflect it, but to hold it. The light sank into its core, touching layers of stone and veins of hidden water, then resting there like a warm hand laid upon a sleeping heart. And within that warmth, the planet began to dream. It dreamed of raindrops of misty skies, of tiny particles that might move, might feel. Light and darkness took turns. Day followed night, night followed day. Each rotation of the planet was a long breath. It inhaled, light exhaled shadow, then inhaled again, steady, like a heartbeat. Everything became alive, even though life had not yet begun. The planet in its silence was learning how to listen to the wind moving through canyons, to the cracking of ice, to the steady rhythm of its own pulse. Some planets were not so fortunate. There were worlds burned by their stars' fire, split open and scorched by unbearable heat. Others were left behind in the cold, where light never reached. Yet even in those places, dreams persisted. For when light was gone, the planet still dreamed of it, of being warmed, of living, of seeing. And the universe, in its infinite mercy, allowed every one of those dreams to exist. In some small corner, among countless planets, there was one that was different. It kept its water, its air, and just the right warmth for the star's light to sink in without fading. At first, it too was only rock and water, but gradually, something began to change within it. Perhaps this planet had dreamed longer than the others. It dreamed deeper, clearer. It began to dream of life. If someone could have seen it from afar, they would have noticed how the light danced on its oceans like tiny stars swimming on its surface. Warmth spread slowly, forming eddies, ripples, the first movements of the future. The planet did not yet know its name, but the light called to it every day, every night, and it answered by spinning gently, rhythmically, a silent greeting to its parent star. The universe looked down tenderly. It saw its child, a small planet, dreaming. Not a human dream, but the primal dream of stone and water, to exist within warmth, to hear, to breathe, and to know that it was not alone in the dark. The light from the parent star continued its journey, traveling through space, touching every planet in turn. Some reflected it, some absorbed it, and one, the dreaming child, held it close. But the light was not yet ready to stop. It had other paths to follow, other worlds to find. And while the planet dreamed of life, the light began its own journey, a voyage without end, traveling on and on, searching for the place where it might finally belong. After lighting the planets around it, the light gently left its parent star. It was not angry nor sad. It simply wished to go farther, to see things that even its own star could never see. The light departed quietly, carrying with it the warmth of its birthplace, the story of the fiery heart that had created it. It had no luggage, no destination, only a fragile thread connecting it to where it began, a thread woven from memory. The light traveled endlessly, passing through regions of freezing space, where darkness grew thick like fog. Even after millions of years, it did not stop. Every step of its journey was a moment, every place, it touched a different world. Some places were so cold that the light only brushed past, leaving behind a faint trace before dissolving into nothingness. Some places were so hot that it was swallowed whole, leaving behind only the last breath of itself within a vast flame. Yet the light felt no anger, no fear. It simply kept moving, as though motion itself was the reason for its existence. Along the way, the light touched billions of worlds. There were dry planets where it met nothing but rock and dust. There were frozen planets where it slid across ice and reflected back as fragments glittering like crystal. There were worlds wrapped in thick clouds where it could only pierce part way before vanishing into mist. Wherever it went, the light left something behind, sometimes warmth, sometimes a soft farewell, sometimes nothing but a faint memory of having once passed through. But once when the light approached a distant world, it saw something different. A deep blue surface stretched wide and shimmering, moving gently like a vast mirror. The light touched down, and for the first time in its long journey, it saw its own reflection. The water rippled, and the image of the light returned soft, glimmering warm. In that moment, the light understood it had not been traveling only to illuminate, but to find itself. The light glided across the surface of the water, drawing delicate curves like ribbons of silk. Each wave was a small mirror, and in every mirror, the light saw a different side of itself. The gentle, the fierce, the fearful, the lonely. It realized that perhaps the journey was never about going far, but about seeing oneself again in another form. The ocean seemed to smile, welcoming the light with cool blue arms. The light said nothing, simply rested, listening to the rhythm of the waves, the heartbeat of the planet. Perhaps in this faraway place, it had found something it never knew. It was searching for the feeling of being able to stay even for a moment. Then the day passed, the planet turned, and as darkness arrived, the light withdrew. It was not sad, for it knew it would return. Other rays of itself continued their journey, slipping through clouds, gliding over mountain peaks, and hiding within tiny drops of dew on leaves. Perhaps a part of the light would remain here forever, within the ocean's depths, where it was reflected and became memory. But the rest had to keep going, for light has never known how to stop. It was born to spread, to reach into the deepest corners of the universe, places no one had ever seen. It passed through distant galaxies where billions of stars were singing. Each star was a story, and the light listened to them all. It gathered those songs, carrying them along like unopened letters. Through this journey, the light realized it was never truly alone. Though it often traveled through darkness by itself, it was surrounded by countless other ray siblings born from faraway stars. They met in the void, brushed against each other, then parted again like nomadic souls sharing an eternal silence. And within that silence, there was something beautiful, the peace of things that need no words. As time passed, the light aged. It no longer shone as brightly as before, but grew softer, warmer like a small lamp glowing in the night. Wherever it went, it carried the warmth of its parent star and the memory of the worlds it had touched. It no longer wished to conquer, only to rest somewhere quiet, to dissolve gently. The light understood that it too would one day fade, yet even in disappearing, It would leave a faint trail across the cosmos, a whisper saying, "I was here." And when another ray of light passed by, it would see that trace and know that it was not the first, nor would it be the last. The light continued on, never stopping. Sometimes it rested inside a raindrop. Sometimes it lingered on a snowflake. Sometimes it skimmed across the surface of a dead planet. But wherever it went, it sang with the wind, telling the story of where it was born. And in every song there was the heartbeat of millions of stars, the warmth of planets still dreaming. As the light continued its journey, it began to notice not every star had a place to send its light. Some burned quietly in solitude, without planets, without companions, only themselves and the darkness. The light passed by them, pausing softly as if to offer comfort. For the light understood that no matter where it went or how far it traveled, every star carried the same thing within its heart, the quiet loneliness of those born to shine. Not every star has planets. In the endless sea of the heavens, countless stars live quiet, solitary lives, without satellites, without dust rings, without an echo to answer them. They exist like sleepwalkers wandering through the dark, with only their own light to keep them company. These lonely stars, though unseen by anyone, still shine, for they understand that light does not need an audience. It exists simply to soften the silence of space. Many old stars no longer shine as brightly as they once did. Their flames have calmed their breaths, slowed, yet a faint warmth remains just enough for the universe to feel that life still continues. Perhaps somewhere those stars have forgotten that they once blazed fiercely, but their light has not forgotten. It still travels carrying the final breath of the mother that gave it life, lulling the sky to sleep with its dim, gentle glow. If we could listen, we might hear the sighs of these stars, soft as wind, brushing across a thin veil of mist. They are not sad, only quiet. In their solitude lies a strange beauty, the beauty of peace. They need no witnesses, no names called out to them. They only need to burn, even in silence. Some stars watch their companions from afar, the young radiant ones surrounded by planets and glittering dust. They gaze, not with envy, but with a quiet smile, for they know that one day those bright stars too will fade, and in the end, all will share the same thing, stillness. Loneliness is not the universe's punishment. It is a reward for those who have learned how to shine without depending on anyone else. Amid the cold darkness, these stars remain proud. Their light is not explosive like fireworks, but steady like a small candle burning in an empty room. No one sees it, yet it burns. No one praises it, yet it warms. That persistence is what gives the lonely stars their unique beauty, quiet but strong, fragile, yet eternal. Some solitary stars have lived so long that their light takes thousands of years to reach another place. Sometimes, by the time that light touches someone's eyes, the star has already died. Its light becomes a message from a distant past, a whisper that says, "I was here. I once burned." In this universe, nothing ever truly disappears. It only transforms, only travels farther. Lonely stars share a peculiar bond with darkness. They do not fear it, for darkness is the only mirror that can reflect their light. Without darkness, that light could never be seen. And without these solitary stars, the universe would never learn that silence too can be radiant. Sometimes among crowded galaxies, The light of millions of stars blends together, making the sky dazzlingly bright. But when the human eye looks farther beyond the brilliance, it finds stretches of empty space where only one or two small stars burn. And it is there that we realize a gentle truth: beauty does not need company. One solitary star is enough to light up the void. Perhaps like humans, those stars too have moments of reflection, of remembering their youth, their heat, the days they were surrounded by dust and planets. But instead of longing, they choose to smile. For nothing lasts forever, not light, not life, not even loneliness. And in the moment they accept this, their light becomes serene, no longer fierce, but pure. Sometimes the light of lonely stars is the softest the universe has ever known. It does not pierce the dark or blind the eyes. It simply rests, soaking into the fabric of space like a lullaby. Perhaps those stars are singing not for anyone to hear, but to lull themselves into peaceful sleep. And the universe, in its endless quiet, listens. In such moments, we might imagine the universe breathing, alongside its stars, a long, deep, slow breath. When an old star closes its fiery eyes, its final light still spreads outward like a farewell before drifting into a long slumber. The universe receives that light gently, like a mother cradling her child. Loneliness, it turns out, can also be a form of love, for the universe, for existence, for oneself. The lonely stars are not despairing. They are proof of a love that needs no return. For sometimes to burn and to shine is already enough. And then while some stars quietly drift into sleep, others find one another. From chance encounters, they draw close, twisting into clusters of brighter, grander light. No longer alone, they begin to move together in swirling dances. Galaxies are born cities of light, where billions of stars together hum the symphony of the cosmos. From solitude, the universe transforms into a dance tender, resplendent and eternal. After the long, lonely days of each star, the universe began to change its rhythm. The solitary lights, once accustomed to burning, alone in the stillness, slowly began to find one another. They did not collide, nor did they compete to shine, but were gently drawn together by an invisible force, something that humans would one day call gravity, but that the universe only knew as longing. From those threads of yearning, millions of stars began to gather to spin, and thus the dance of the galaxies was born. No music was heard yet. If one listened with the mind, faint sounds could be felt: the turning of dust, the hum of light, the breath of space. Each star was a step, each orbit an embrace. The entire sky became a vast stage where light and shadow intertwined, moving, swirling, separating in a dance that would last for billions of years. Galaxies were not born all at once. Some were young and full of energy, spinning fast and radiant like a passionate waltz. Others were old, moving slowly, softly, like the breath of someone asleep. Yet all followed a rhythm with no name, the rhythm of time, the rhythm of cosmic life. And in that great dance, the stars did not just burn. They sang, singing with their light. From afar, each galaxy appeared as a massive, swirling cloud, ethereal, as silk ribbons drifting through wind. Their bright arms coiled around their glowing cores, like petals folding inward to cradle the seed within. Even in constant motion, they carried a strange tranquility, like a dreamer whose body moves while the soul remains still. Young galaxies collided and merged. There was no destruction, only rebirth. When two galaxies met, they did not shatter, but flowed together like rivers joining into a single sea. Their lights blended, weaving into luminous regions so brilliant that even the surrounding space seemed to change color. It was one of the rare moments when the universe felt most alive, as though it too were smiling, watching its children dance. Within those spiraling tides, dust and gas clustered into small groups where new stars began to form. Amid the grand choreography, life continued to quietly unfold. Some galaxies held hundreds of billions of stars, each star with dozens of planets, each planet holding a story. A galaxy, then, was not just a painting of light, it was an archive of memory. As the luminous ribbons twisted together, they did more than move, they told stories. Stories of the first stars of dust, of light, of loneliness, and of the joy of finding one another again after billions of years of wandering. Perhaps in that very moment, the universe first felt what humans would later call happiness, the feeling of belonging. Galaxies orbited one another, forming glittering pairs across the dark. They did not touch, yet they could still feel each other through gentle gravitational caresses, like distant lovers gazing across the shores of infinity. And when one galaxy aged and slowed its light dimming, another would arrive, wrapping it softly in a new spiral. And so the dance continued, with no leader and no end. From far away, by the time the light of these galaxies reached our eyes, they had already spun millions more times. What we see are dances long past, but that does not matter, for whether in the past or now, the dance goes on. In the universe, every motion is part of that cosmic choreography. Even our own breath, small as it is, counts as a note in the same eternal song. If one day the universe were to stop spinning, perhaps light itself would fall silent, for motion is how it exists, how it loves. The galaxies with their billions of stars do not spin merely to stay balanced, they spin to keep singing. Each rotation is a promise that the universe still lives, still dreams, still tells its story in the oldest language of all light and motion. And among the countless galaxies, there is one small spiral, not too large, not too bright. It turns slowly, gracefully, like a dancer lost in a dream. At its edge shines an ordinary star, neither the brightest nor the biggest. Around that star orbits a small blue planet spinning, breathing, dreaming. In the endless dance of galaxies, one small star continues to keep its quiet rhythm, the sun. It is not the largest nor the strongest, but its light is gentle and patient. Around it drifts a small blue planet, moving along its path like a child asleep in its mother's arms. And every morning, when the first rays of sunlight touch the water's surface, the sun softly tells the earth the story of the universe, the story that began when light first learned to breathe and continues even now. Amid hundreds of billions of stars dancing across distant galaxies, there is a small one resting in a quiet corner of the universe. It is not the brightest nor the largest, yet its light is warm enough to nurture the most fragile things. People call it the sun. The sun is not loud. It does not seek to be the center of attention. It simply burns with patience, every day, every hour shining with a gentle light, like a mother's hand resting on her child's forehead. Around the sun are its little children, planets of all shapes and temperaments. One is fiery, like Mercury, spinning so fast it barely has time to breathe. Another is cold and distant, like Pluto hiding at the edge of darkness, rarely looking back at its parent. But among them, there is one planet that is softer, calmer, and has a heart that listens. That planet is Earth. Each day, as the sun begins its storytelling, Earth listens quietly. The sun tells of the stars that gave birth to it, of ancient clouds of dust that once drifted across the cosmos. It speaks of other planets, worlds without life, yet beautiful in their own ways. Earth listens and remembers. In every beam of sunlight that falls upon it, Earth hears the breath of the universe, the lullaby of its stellar mother. The sun does not teach it, simply tells stories. Its light carries memories, songs, and unspoken advice. And over time, Earth begins to learn how to sing back, not with words, but with its own sounds, the whisper of wind through forests, the rhythm of rain across oceans, the crash of waves upon sand, and the calm green spread that blankets its surface. When the sun sees this, it smiles. Its light reflects upon the oceans, shimmering like 1,000 smiles in return. Earth is no longer just a stone revolving around its mother star. It has become a living being, one that feels, breathes, and responds. It absorbs light, keeps its warmth, and gives back to the universe with life and color. The sun tells its story through light. Earth retells it through life. Together, their voices weave a song with no lyrics, yet one that everyone can hear. Each morning, when the first rays of light touch the water, Earth stirs gently. Trees reach upward, dewdrops melt, and birds begin to sing. The sun watches it all, and in that moment, it is no longer merely a shining star. It is the greatest storyteller in the universe, the one who taught a planet how to love and to be grateful for existence. When night falls, the sun hides beyond the horizon, leaving darkness and other stars to watch over its child. Yet, even when unseen, it remains. Its light reflects off the moon Earth's adopted child, like a lamp placed by the window. The sun has never truly left. It merely rests so that Earth may tell the rest of the story in its own light. And in that darkness, Earth is never alone. It remembers the sun's words, "Nothing lasts forever, my dear, but light when shared lives longer than any star." Earth keeps that truth close to its heart. So, every morning when the light returns, it sings in colors greener and brighter than the day before. The sun, too, has moments of sadness. It knows that one day it will grow old and its light will weaken. Yet when it looks upon Earth, it feels at peace, for its light will not vanish. It will transform into life, into trees, into water, into the breath of billions of tiny beings that live upon the planet's surface. Every leaf, every drop, every creature is a mirror reflecting its glow, and through them it will live forever. Earth, in its endless orbit, never forgets. Each rotation is a silent thank you. Every changing season is a new verse in the song it offers to its mother star. When flowers bloom, when rain falls, when snow covers the ground, when leaves turn and fade, all are chapters in the story that the sun and Earth continue to write together. If one listens closely enough, they might hear the faintest sound in the universe, the wordless dialogue between the sun and the Earth. One tells, one listens, one shines, one reflects. A love that needs no words, no touch, yet endures through billions of years. The sun understands that Earth is not just its child, it is the witness to the longest love story in the universe, the love of light for life. And so the sun continues to tell its story day after day, night after night, ray after ray. And Earth continues to sing through its oceans, its winds, its rains, and its endless green. Among all the stories the sun has ever told Earth, loves one most the story of water, of the very first drop that fell from the ancient sky, carrying within it the memory of the cosmos. Every drop knows how to listen, how to reflect the light, how to remember. When those drops fell into the ocean, they carried the sun's tales within them, storing them upon the blue surface. And thus, the story turned to a new chapter, when water began to remember and life began to dream. In those days, when Earth was still young, the sky was a thick blanket of gas and vapor wrapping around the planet like a mother's protective embrace. Then one day, those clouds gathered, grew heavy, and began to weep. The first raindrops fell from that newborn sky, slow light trembling, as if the universe itself were shedding tears of joy for the life that was about to be born. The raindrops fell, touched the hot rocks, and burst into steam, only to gather again into clouds. The cycle began untaught, yet instinctive water knew how to return, how to continue. Each drop, though it existed only for a fleeting moment, carried within it the memory of every place it had been, the heat of the earth, the light of the sun, and the cold breath of the sky. Then one day, a raindrop fell onto a surface cool enough not to vanish. It stayed. It slid along the ground, joined others, and together they formed tiny streams. The streams found their way through cracks, merging into rivulets, then rivers, then seas. And when sunlight fell upon them, the entire surface shimmered, a vast mirror, reflecting the love of the mother star for her child planet. That light did more than shine, it whispered. It told the water stories of distant stars of other planets that would never know the soft embrace of liquid. Water listened not with words, but by moving, rippling gently in response. Each wave was an answer, delicate as breath, clear as a dream. If we listen closely, we can still hear that story. In the sound of waves, there is the rhythm of the universe. In the falling rain, the murmur of the sun. And in every drop of water, there lies a fragment of memory of starlight that traveled millions of years just to rest upon the sea. Water began to remember. It remembered every ray of light that touched it, every warmth that seeped into its depths. It remembered the wind from space, and even the slow, steady turning of the earth. Every river that flowed carried those memories away to every rock, every grain of sand, every corner of the planet. Wherever there was water, there was memory. When night came, the moon cast its reflection upon the water, and the water told another story, a story of waiting. It waited for the light to return, for the sun to rise, and tell more tales. In that darkness, the water dreamed of the beings that would one day come of tiny hands, that would touch its surface of the breath of life, that would one day dissolve within its waves. Perhaps it was within those dreams that water learned the greatest miracle of all, how to love. Water loved the light, for the light made it shine. It loved the earth, for the earth gave it form. It loved the wind, for the wind made it move. And it loved itself, for within it lived the sky, the sea, and the memory of the universe. Gradually, the waters spread. Oceans formed, covering most of the earth. The planet became a blue gem, suspended in the dark sky, The sun looked down its light melting into the surface of the sea, and there it saw its own reflection scattered across millions of tiny waves. In every ray of light, in every droplet, there was an unending conversation between light and memory. Across the oceans, the wind began to sing. Its song blended with the waves, creating the planet's first melody, the song of water. Each ripple, each current was a note in the growing symphony of life. And deep within the ocean's dark layers, where light could not reach the water, still remembered. It kept every story, every breath, every grain of dust that fell into its depths. Water became living memory, the one element on the planet that could preserve everything light had ever touched. When the rain fell, it was more than weather. It was storytelling. It was water retelling its journey, the story that began with the sun, passed through the sky, and returned to earth. Every raindrop was a tiny letter from the universe sent to the life not yet born. And when a drop touched the ground, it whispered, "I have traveled far to meet you." Earth listened and answered with its first green shoots, tender leaves unfurling in the light. Water flowed through them, nurturing them, and discovered something it had never known before. From within itself, life was beginning. Within the water, tiny particles began to move. At first, just a tremor, like a breath. Then they joined, forming strange shapes, soft, fragile, but persistent. The sunlight slipped through the surface, caressing those newborn beings like a mother's hand. And thus, after billions of years asleep in memory, life opened its eyes for the first time. Earth began to sing, not only through water, but through the heartbeat of life itself, growing deep within the ocean's embrace, deep within the blue heart of the water, where light touched only to fade away. Like smoke, a miracle began to unfold. Amid drifting specks of matter, a faint movement stirred no sound, no clear form, only a tiny tremor, thin as a breath. Yet in that very moment, the universe changed. For the first time, something knew that it existed. The first living beings opened their eyes, not to see but to feel. They did not know who they were, nor why they were here. They only sensed the warmth of sunlight, the gentle cradle of the surrounding water. No words, no thoughts, only sensation, pure and unspoiled. Each motion they made was a small note in the growing symphony of the planet. A single tremor, a ripple spreading through the sea, then dissolving again. The universe, silent for billions of years now, had sound. Not from stars, not from wind, but from the first heartbeat of life. Earth had begun to sing with a music heard only by the heart. These creatures were so small, they were almost invisible. Yet within them lay everything that would one day become all things. Trees, birds, oceans, and humankind. Every cell was a miniature universe, holding memories of light, water, earth, and air. As they divided and multiplied, the universe seemed to learn a new rhythm, no longer the pulse of stars, but the rhythm of life itself. Day by day, the waters held them close, shielding them from wind and flame. The sunlight still reached down, gentle like a mother's hand, stroking a sleeping child's hair. Beneath the waves, life continued to learn how to move, how to feed, how to feel, how to exist. Simple cells began to share energy as if they already understood that survival meant togetherness. Bit by bit, the ocean ceased to be only a vessel of memory and became a cradle for what was new. Life was no longer just an idea, it had become a heartbeat. Under soft light, millions of tiny beings began to drift and spin, like singing dust motes, swirling along with the current. They floated on, leaving faint trails of light, like stars moving across the sea. Earth watched them, and for the first time felt that it was no longer alone. The air grew different, softer, warmer. The water no longer reflected only light, but also life. Wind brushed across the waves, carrying a new scent, the scent of something growing. The universe, once a realm of silence and light, now knew something entirely new, a pulse. The sun looked down its rays, glimmering upon the waves. It saw the small beings drifting below and smiled in silence. Its light was no longer just energy, it had become a bridge connecting the mother star to her fragile children of life. Every beam was a blessing, every warmth a quiet embrace. Slowly life began to reach further. Some creatures swam upward into the shallows, where the light was stronger. Others drifted downward, hiding in the darkness. Each path was a choice, each choice a small dream. Together, they wove the first story of a living journey, a story that billions of years later humankind would still be writing. At night, when the ocean rested, the little beings slept. But their sleep was not silent. Beneath the surface, one could almost hear the steady rhythm, the beating of millions of tiny hearts, blending into a slow, tender melody. It was the first song of life, rising from the depths, reaching toward the distant stars. The universe listened. It realized it was no longer alone in its vastness. Within infinity, there now existed one small planet that could sing, could breathe, could love. Every heartbeat on Earth was a reminder that the cosmos was still creating, still living, still dreaming. And so life continued to expand. From the water, it reached the shore. From tiny cells, it became creatures that could swim, crawl, and feel the wind. Every step, every breath was a continuation of a miracle, one that began with a droplet, a ray of light, a single heartbeat beneath the waves. One day, a few small creatures left the ocean. They crawled onto land, carrying the moisture of the sea and the memory of water. Sunlight embraced them, and under that gentle touch, the ground began to change color. Grass sprouted, moss spread, and the first flower bloomed small, yet enough to make the entire planet tremble. After billions of years of silence, and sea earth finally wore its first colors. And from that moment on, life blossomed on land, the universe's dream written anew. In the silent expanse of space, amid swirling ribbons of dust and light, there are stories that have never been spoken aloud. One of them is the story of love, between a star and a planet, a bond not made through touch or sound, but through light. The star is the storyteller, the planet, the listener. Each ray of light is a whispered word, and every orbit of the planet is a gentle nod in reply. Between them, there is no real distance, only drifting, waiting, and the quiet faith that light will always find its way home. From the moment it was born, the star knew that most of its life would be spent warming the worlds around it. It burned not to exist, but to give, to love. Its light did not choose. It reached out to all. Yet only a few planets knew how to hold that light, how to reflect it back through life, through shades of green and the songs of wind. And among those few, there were worlds that became mirrors, reflecting the very radiance that had given them being. The planet never spoke. But every morning when the star rose, it tilted slightly, a silent greeting. Every evening, as the light withdrew, it kept that warmth deep within itself, unwilling to let it fade. However long the night it waited, knowing that dawn would return, carrying the sweet promise, I am still here. The star, too, knew it would not last forever. One day, its light would weaken, its breath slow, and the fire at its heart would fold inward into ash. Yet until that final moment, it wished only to keep shining, to send its last rays like love letters across the void to its distant planet. In that light were traces of memory blessings and a quiet vow we will meet again in the next cycle. The planet, though silent, felt it all. When the light began to fade, it altered its rhythm, turning more slowly, as if to hold on to time itself. Winds softened, the seas grew calm, a prayer rising from its surface. And in that moment, within the dimming glow, the planet understood the deepest truth. Love is not about possession, but exchange, the giving and receiving of warmth, the way it absorbed light and returned it through life, through seasons of falling leaves, through the songs of living things. Sometimes the star gazed down and saw the planet gleaming in its own reflected glow, the green of forests, the white of clouds, the blue of oceans. The light went and returned, and went an unbroken rhythm, and within that endless exchange, their love became an eternal dance, quiet, graceful, wordless, but everlasting. Time passed and both grew old. The star was no longer brilliant. Its light grew gentle. Yet in that gentleness, the planet felt a truer warmth, no longer blinding, only soft and tender, like the touch of someone who once loved deeply, now reaching out once more. Each fading ray was not a farewell, but a final embrace, silent, warm, and whole. When the star finally contracted into a small ember, in the night the planet continued to turn, not out of inertia, but out of a promise. Even without light, it kept warmth in its core, remembering waiting. For within the planet's heart, that love had not died. It merely slept like a seed awaiting spring. And the star within its ashes still carried the image of the planet that had once orbited it. In the last breath of its light, it left behind a trace, so that when a new cycle began, when the universe gathered dust and flame to birth another star, that memory would awaken once more. Perhaps in another corner of the galaxy, the two souls would find each other again, a new star, a new planet, but with the same light, the same rhythm, the same love song written anew. In the repetitions of time, the universe forgets nothing. It preserves every love between star and planet, between light and shadow. Each time a new spark appears in the sky, it is not merely the birth of a star. It is the continuation of an ancient promise that no matter how many times they fade, light will always find its way back home. And then, one day the star grew tired. Its light softened into a final breath, then slowly dissolved into nothingness. The planet remained still, not weeping, only turning more slowly, as if to lull its beloved into peaceful sleep after a lifetime of shining. And so, beneath the quiet veil of night, the star closed its eyes gently, peacefully, beginning its long rest, preparing for its next rebirth, when the universe will once again whisper, "Wake up, my light." Time moves slowly in the universe. Billions of years can pass, like a single breath of the void. And within that breath, there is a star nearing the end of its life. It has burned long enough, bright enough, beautifully enough, Each of its rays has touched distant planets, warmed oceans, and ignited dreams. But now the fire at its core begins to wane. Its fuel is nearly gone. Its light softens. The universe understands the time has come for the star to close its eyes. Yet the star does not fade at once. Before sleeping, it wishes to say goodbye, not with words, but with a symphony of light. From deep within its core, the last surges of energy rise like a heart beating one final time. The star swells, expanding its brilliance greater than ever before. A gentle red hue spreads across the heavens, warm, tender, like a final embrace offered to the cosmos. The whole sky falls silent. The planets around it pause in stillness, not out of fear, but reverence. The light is no longer scorching, but soft like a farewell. The rays travel farther than ever, before stretching across galaxies, as if to tell every world I was here. I once shone. The star does not cry nor fear. It only glows brighter, like an old soul smiling one last time before closing its eyes. Everything that was once pain or weight melts into that light. No more burning, only peace. The universe watches tenderly, like a mother watching her child drift to sleep. When the light reaches its peak, the star blossoms open. Its outer layers break apart, drifting in all directions, slowly, gracefully, like immense petals dissolving into air. Each fragment carries part of the star memory, warmth, and promise. Together, they merge into shimmering clouds of dust. Seen from afar, it is not death, but a spectacle of love and eternity. The planets surrounding it now float in silence. The radiant light bathes their surfaces, painting them in a deep crimson. They know they will soon grow cold, yet in this moment they are at peace. For that final light is too beautiful, too gentle. It feels not like an ending, but a lullaby for the universe, for the planets, and for the star itself. The star contracts, shrinking its light, dimming, but not gone. Deep within its core, a fragment still burns small, as the heart of a weary soul unwilling to leave. It is no longer a blazing torch, but a faint ember adrift in darkness, a spirit at rest, not lost. And the universe wraps it in the gentlest silence. The clouds of dust spread outward, drifting through space. Under the pull of time, the scattered particles begin to gather again. Each grain holds within it a fragment of the lost star, a touch of light, a trace of warmth, a lingering heartbeat. And somewhere far away, those grains will meet again, embracing, spiraling, giving birth to a new star. The star, though asleep, still exists, for in the universe, nothing truly vanishes. It only changes form, place, rhythm. Death, through the eyes of the cosmos, is merely a long slumber before another awakening. Light never dies. It simply travels farther to shine elsewhere in another time. Earth looks up, watching the fading glimmers dissolve into the night, and feels an unfamiliar peace. It seems to understand no parting is ever forever. The universe moves in circles. The star sleeps, dust drifts, dust gathers, light returns. And so, life renews itself endlessly in silence. In the star's final moment, one small light remains. It is not bright enough to illuminate, but enough to remind love never disappears. It only rests. Across the infinite dark, that light drifts soft as a breath, carrying one last whisper. Sleep well, we will meet again. From the ashes of the sleeping star, dust and light begin to find each other once more. They gather into new bands of radiance, glimmering like morning mist against the night. The universe, after its long silence, exhales gently. A new rhythm begins, slow, steady, tender. From death, life rises again, and within each shining particle, perhaps the soul of the old star still smiles, waiting for the day it will burn once more. Before sinking into eternal sleep, there are stars that do not close their eyes quietly. They choose another way to leave fierce radiant, as if they wish to leave a final mark upon the universe. This is the moment of the supernova, when a star explodes, releasing all its light energy and memories into the vastness of space. But do not mistake it for death. No, it is a gift. The star has burned with all its might. It has given everything it had. And when the energy within its core is no longer enough to hold itself together, it collapses inward, then bursts outward. An explosion without sound, only light so bright that even the galaxies bow their heads in silence. In that fleeting moment, the star shines millions of times brighter than ever before. Its light can travel for billions of years, piercing through every shadow, as if whispering to the universe I have lived. Within that storm of light, a miracle is unfolding. The temperature rises to the unimaginable. The pressure grows so intense that matter collides, melts, and transforms into something new. Gold, carbon, oxygen, iron, all are born in that instant from the star's final breath. Each element becomes a small fragment of life yet to come. If we could look closer, we would see tiny particles of gold scattering from the explosion particles that billions of years later would rest in wedding rings, in grains of sand in the beating hearts of new worlds. Carbon, the element of all living things, is also born there. Every cell, every heartbeat, every breath on Earth carries within it the ashes of a supernova. In truth, we are all children of stars that once exploded. As the star erupts, its gaseous layers swirl into luminous spirals. Each wave is a story radiating outward, reaching the farthest corners of space. That light does more than brighten the darkness. It sows seeds, tiny grains of future life. The universe, once shrouded in shadow, is nourished by the light and dust of those who dared to burn completely. The explosion lasts only seconds, but its influence endures for billions of years. When the light fades, all that remains are brilliant clouds of dust, the remnants of a star long gone. Yet there is no sadness in this, because from those very remnants, new wonders will be born. Dust drifts, meets, and gathers, forming new clusters of gas. One day, those clusters will contract, spiral inward, and a new star will emerge, a perfect circle, the heartbeat of the universe never ceasing. And somewhere within that drifting dust, a planet may take shape. Perhaps it will have oceans, skies, winds, and living beings. All of it born from the ashes of an explosion that happened so far away so long ago. Think of it when you place your hand upon your chest and feel your heart beating. There may be an atom of carbon within you that was once forged inside a star that exploded billions of years ago. In this way, the universe never truly says goodbye. It only changes form, rhythm, and the shape of love itself. The death of a star is a gift for a million other worlds. When a star explodes, it does not vanish. It divides itself, sending its fragments across space, so that one day that same light may burn again in another form. Across the distant night, the light of a supernova is still traveling. Even now, that light may be moving through space, touching galaxies, yet unborn. Each time it passes, part of the cosmos is illuminated. A grain of dust is awakened. A new story begins. And when the final traces of that explosion fade, silence returns. Only a lingering warmth remains soft, tender, filled with remembrance. The universe bows its head, not in mourning, but in reverence. For in that moment of eruption, the star had given everything it possessed, turning its own end into the beginning of countless dreams. The ashes of the star drift on golden specks, glimmering against the endless dark. They are not gone, only wandering quietly, slowly waiting to be called home. One day, when those dust grains meet again, they will ignite once more, and then the new light will carry within it the soul of the old, continuing the endless story of the universe, that nothing ever truly ends. Light merely transforms to begin again. After the brilliant explosion, when the final light of the supernova fades into darkness, only dust remains, tiny particles so light they can drift through space for millions of years. Each grain of dust carries within it a fragment of memory, the warmth of a star that has gone out the glow of its brightest days, and a quiet promise I will return. They drift away silently. No one hears them. No one sees them yet. In the dark, the universe watches. The cosmic winds, those invisible tides, begin to gather the dust together. Bit by bit, the particles touch, cling, and form larger clouds. Within that silver mist, the ashes of stars quietly find one another like old souls, reuniting after a long slumber. Time does not hurry. Millions of years pass. As the dust spirals, thickens, and condenses, inside gravity, the language of cosmic love begins to speak. It pulls everything closer, holds it tight, and within that gathering cloud, a new star is born. Light is rekindled, but this time it carries within it the souls of 1,000 extinguished suns. A silent resurrection, an ancient heart reborn in a new form. Around that young star, rings of dust begin to swirl again. The ashes of stars, once the punctuation of endings, now become the foundation of beginnings. The dust fuses, collides, shatters, and reforms, creating stones, boulders, and planets. The universe paints itself anew, using the same colors, but arranging them differently, more delicately, more wisely, with all the experience of its past creations. One day among those planets, there is one that is special, not too hot, not too cold. Water can flow there, and air can breathe. The ashes that once floated through the void now rest quietly beneath its soil, transformed into elements that nourish life. Carbon from an ancient star becomes trees, skin breath. Iron from a stellar core becomes the blood flowing in living veins. Gold, forged in a supernova's fury, lies buried in the planet's heart, waiting for the touch of life to find it. And so, from ashes, life is born again. No tragedy, no tears, only transformation. Death is merely a change of form. The universe has never truly lost anyone, never let anything disappear completely. It only transforms from light to dust, from dust to worlds, from worlds to life. A gentle, enduring cycle, like a heartbeat that never stops. Perhaps that is how the universe loves, not through words, not through sorrow, but through endless creation. Each time a star dies, a new seed is sown. Each time darkness spreads, it becomes fertile ground for new light to grow. This love is not romantic, but so profound it becomes eternal. If you look up at the night sky and see millions of stars shining, remember within each beam of light, is the dust of stars that once died and the life of stars now being born. That light may have traveled for billions of years to reach your eyes, but when it touches you, it fulfills its purpose to pass on the warmth of existence, to remind you that every ending is simply another way to begin. On a newborn planet, when the first living creatures open their eyes, they do not know where they came from. Yet in every breath, every drop of blood, every grain of soil beneath their feet, there lies a fragment of the ancient stars. The souls of old light sleep within them, still living, still loving, still dreaming. And when they lift their gaze to the sky, perhaps somewhere, the light of that old star is gazing back gentle and calm, like a mother watching her child grow. The universe never truly repeats itself yet. It never truly changes. Each cycle is a new version of the same truth, life reborn from stardust. From the planets born in ashes, life grows and begins to ask questions. Tiny, yet curious, these beings look up and wonder, where did we come from? What is that light? And why do we know how to love? In that moment, for the first time in its vast history, the universe looks back at itself through the eyes of the life it created. From there, the journey of light enters a new chapter, the chapter of consciousness, where the cosmos learns to see its own reflection and realizes it too is a living being learning to understand itself. Far beyond past the blazing rivers of light, where brightness exists only as a memory, the universe grows strangely quiet. There lie galaxies that have ceased to give birth to stars. No more explosions. No more newborn light. No more radiant songs of young creation. They still spin, still keep their perfect round shape, but the soul of motion is gone. Only inertia remains, only memory. Those galaxies are the graveyards of the cosmos, not cold like tombs, but warm like a long and gentle sleep. Within them, billions of stars that once burned, once sang, once loved, now exist only as drifting ashes, slowly floating through the void. Their light is still there, but dimming, fading, like the breath of an old soul sinking into deep rest. If we could draw near, perhaps, we'd see how tender everything has become. No more explosions, no more fire, no sound of birth. Only stillness where ancient specks of light drift softly around one another, like weary spirits, too tired to speak content, merely to rest together. Every orbit, every slow rotation, carries within it a faint rhythm from long ago, the rhythm of youth, when that galaxy once shimmered in the dawn of the sky. In these cosmic cemeteries, time moves slowly, so slow that a single moment might last for billions of years. No one counts anymore. Nothing measures. There is only darkness and the faint old light holding each other close. The universe seems to breathe softly, afraid to wake those who have slept for ages. Yet even in stillness, those galaxies are not empty. They are filled with memory. Every star that ever lived there, every explosion that ever roared, left a trace in dust, in gas, in space itself. If one could listen carefully, one might hear faint echoes. I once burned. I once shone. It is the whisper of ancient light still traveling, though no one remains to answer. The old galaxies do not grieve. They do not fear fading. They understand this is the nature of all things in the universe, to expand, to shine, and then to rest. No tragedy, no ending, only another long, quiet cycle.